A peaceful day in the Honeycomb hideout is suddenly interrupted by...
The Hulk!
Hey, Big Hulk, want big cereal!
Honeycomb, you better come through! Brace yourself, Hulk! Honeycomb's big! It's got a big bite that tastes right!
Big enough for a Hulk?
Just try it!
Horse Honeycomb cereal big and part of balanced breakfast. Hulk, go!
Don't forget your honeycomb!
Honeycomb big!
And it's got a big bite!
Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
You are about to listen to the Totally Super Awesome 80s Reboot Overdrive podcast.
This podcast is our fan tribute to the Incredible Hulk TV show. Be advised that has been exposed to radiation and we caution to listen at your own risk. You have now entered GammaCast.
Hello and welcome once again to GammaCast, Season 2, Season Finale, Vendetta Road. First air date, May 25th, 1979. I'm your host, Charlie, and with me, for possibly the last time,
Phil Parrish, and no, it's not the last time. I'll drop by from time to time.
Okay, yes, kids, I always told you that Phil was our temporary replacement. As the new seasons of new shows are coming on the air, he will be breaking up from us. However, I do have a gentleman who might be joining us very quickly for the next episode, Metamorphosis. A gentleman I know by the name of Maz Manzoor, my skinny rich friend. But you have to watch for it. But even he will only be temporary. We are still looking for a permanent guy to hang out, or we're just going to cycle through people as they want to do. Hey, you ever want to do one episode of The Incredible Hulk? Talk about what your favorite episode was? Drop me a line at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog@gmail.com, or on Twitter at Charlie Esser, CharlieEsser. Look for the two E's in the middle for quality. And let me know that you, too, want to join the Fast and Furious world of podcasting. So, Phil, this episode, Vendetta Road, the 22nd episode of the second season, David Brennan inadvertently joins up with a modern-day Bonnie and Clyde who blow up gas stations in a bid to avenge the death of the male's father, according to IMDb. That was awkwardly written. Moving right along. Written by Justin Egger and Michael McGreevy. Developed, of course, by Kenneth Johnson. Not a lot of big stars in this. Everyone, you do see that a lot of these guys work. Morgan Woodward, who played Ben Madrid, winds up on Dallas. Spalding works regularly. All of our hillbillies, it looks like, showed up at various times in various shows throughout the 70s. Ron Lombard, who plays Ray Floyd, and Christina Hart, who plays Cassie Floyd, they show up. John Fielding, Howard Morton. He was in one of my favorite films, The Mechanic. The original Charles Bronson film. I don't know who he played. When they did The Munsters Today from 1988 to 1991, he played Grandpa. Oh, huh? What do you know? Howard Morton. That's our evil oil executive. Now, okay, Phil.
Yes.
Question: when you saw that this was Westco Oil, did you immediately think, wait, was Westco the oil company from Wildfire?
I didn't get that. I didn't get that.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It was. They have the exact same logo, which is this sort of stylized W, but the actual company in Wildfire was Wilco,
Oh.
And this one is Wesco. Even though they both employed the "Have you tried killing them yet?" policy, Wesco seems to be a little more aggressive with the "Have you tried killing them yet?" policy than Wilco was.
Maybe they're
in my mind, yeah.
I was gonna say, sorry. Maybe they're both subsidiaries of Roxxon.
That's where I was going to go next. Yeah, that is certainly my headcanon. They are both subsidiaries of Roxxon. And now I'm wondering if in Agent Carter that Wilco or Wesco might not have been one of the refinery that they went to where they had the implosion bomb. I have to go back and watch my Agent Carters now just to check that out. So the basic plot line of this episode is that Bill Bixby wanders into this gas station because he's a hobo. Guy says, really, restrooms are for customers only. And we see what is the most important point in this episode. Do you know what that point is, Phil?
No, tell me.
Bill Bixby goes to the soda machine, puts in his quarter, gets his soda, opens the soda, and it's a pop top, not a pull tab.
Oh.
This shows our transition to the 1980s. Earlier in this series, when we were on the race car episode, one was called Bobby or Billy or something. Dave White and I actually had made the point. This is how long back this goes. Oh wow, man! They had the pull tab sodas. I remember the pull tab sodas, man. But here we see the pop top sodas, which is what our modern sodas have, and they were clearly in the process of transitioning to the new pop top design. And here we see that transition. Here we see the world changing before our eyes from the 1970s to the 1980s. So he gets the soda. He uses the bathroom. We see him, do a little basin bath, do a little shaving, get himself nice and clean. Because you got to look your best as a hobo if you want all the ladies to fall for you, as Bill Bixby does, as David Brennan does. But he comes out, and as luck would have it, someone has thrown dynamite into the gas station. What? And our two characters, Ray Floyd and Cassie Floyd, drive up. They tell the attendant to run and throw the dynamite down and then drive away. Outruns Banner. And we get this classic inconsistency of the Hulk moment where he trips, gets knocked out, does not turn into the Hulk. And they, Ray and Cassie, they're not evil people. They go back, they pick him up, they get him out of there before the whole gas station blows up, risk their own lives to save him. And that's a good thing. That is a very good thing. They do save Banner, and then they take Banner to a little cabin in the woods where they're hiding out, and we get the basic story. We don't get the whole story. We see that Ray wants to blow up all the gas stations because he's got a vendetta for his father, and because that's what they're doing. It's an interesting bit here. I've mentioned in previous episodes how terrorism was really on the minds of people in the 1970s. Although it's amazing how much more sympathetic terrorism can be when it's, a white guy doing it. And for what it's worth, you can make the argument that this is sabotage more than terrorism, that they are making sure no one's getting hurt, but they are destroying the property of the villain of Wesco. Wesco, in this case, had basically what we're going to find out is that Wesco had been pressuring the independent gas stations in the town to close them down or to sell out to Wesco. Ray Floyd's father had such a gas station. And then one day, and he refused to sell, and then one day, mysteriously, his gas station blew up, and his father died. And Ray decided that it was because of Wesco and swore his vendetta against them. And that's why he goes around blowing up things. Now, of course, poor old Jack McGee, he's on a much more important story. He's chasing the Hulk, but his editor calls and says, "You're in the area. This is a story. It bleeds, it leads. You go find out what's happening with this story." And again, we get to this idea. Jack McGee, not the best reporter in the world, but certainly the luckiest. He shows up at the station. We get again someone saying, "Jack McGee, you're a good reporter. Why are you working for a rag like the Register?" And again, I was like, really? Why does everyone think Jack McGee's a good... I really got to imagine that Jack McGee busted some big story when he was a cub reporter. Won the Pulitzer, and he got to be this big. This is all headcanon. So in my mind, Jack McGee's got this Pulitzer from when he was just a cub reporter. He stumbled in with his amazing power of being at the right place at the right time on this story, won the Pulitzer. The Register said, "We're going to give you this much money, unlimited expense account. You come work for us because we need some prestige to go along with all of our silly stories. You don't have to do any silly stories. You just have to do our prestige story. You're going to do our science beat. You're going to do our this stuff. You're going to find out all the most amazing things that are happening in this world." And he does that, and then and he feels depressed by this because, of course, he is working for the Register. But then the Hulk comes up, and it's this is the proof that he's always needed, the proof of the monsters in the earth that Register has been warning about, and that's why he's there. But basically, the idea is that the Register pays him a buttload of money, and that's why he's with the Register. Which is why Ben Madrid is with Westco, the evil oil company. Further plot line occurs. Basically, David's trying to talk Cassie and Ray out of blowing up stuff. And Cassie's like, "Yeah, let's stop blowing up stuff. Might not be the best, for our futures." And Ray's like, "No, we're gonna keep on blowing up stuff because I gotta make my point." Cassie, Ray basically said, "Well, then you two go off on your own. I'm going to go on my own, and I'll see you later." And he drives off. And, of course, then the cops show up, and we see that Spaulding, played by Michael Potter, is one of these cops who definitely comes from the "Have You Tried Killing Them Yet" school. And basically starts the firefight by shooting one of the cop cars, because he's a Wesco security guy, but he shoots the cop car to intentionally get them to start shooting at the cabin. Cassie gets shot through the shoulder. Don't worry, it's only a flesh wound. But David gets scared, gets angry, gets outraged, Hulk's out. And we get a nice Hulk tie-in, and now McGee is like, "Oh, okay, there's a Hulk here," as luck would have it. Basically, the Hulk runs off with Cassie. Ray comes back, and he blows up a cop car so that they can get away. And that brings us to Hulk versus Hillbillies. I think this is our. I mean, we got Hulk drinks alcohol, doesn't like it gag way back in Death in the Family. This is our first time with Hulk versus Hillbillies. This was very interesting because it really felt like this was very much played for comedy. What did you think about Hulk versus Hillbillies?
Oh yeah, that was definite comedy. And do you think it was supposed to show Lou Ferrigno's range as an actor?
Possibly. What I actually got from this is I thought this was sort of meant in some way to be a bit of an aping of, the Superman movies, which also were doing a lot of comedy in their superheroism at this time. Because 1979, yeah. I don't think that was when Superman 2 came out. I think Superman 2 was in the 80s. But the original Superman had come out with Christopher Reeves. And they had done a lot of slapstick in there, and I guess maybe they were, or just maybe someone decided, hey, let's do some slapsticky here. We do get some neat moves. We get the pick up a guy by the object that he insists on holding, which we actually saw way back in when the first time the Hulk fought the karate guys and the evil karate guys in what was called Another Path. Yeah, Another Path. In this case, it's a guy with a big old stirring paddle. He goes to hit the Hulk, and the Hulk just picks up the thing. The guy hangs onto it as the Hulk lifts him in the air and throws him. And you get, it's a fun scene. It's definitely a cute scene. And basically, this whole scene is set up so that when Banner does turn back to the Hulk, or does turn back into Banner, when the Hulk does turn back into Banner, there's a clothes laying around from the hillbilly encampment that he can then steal. He's not leaving money anymore. He's just taking clothes. Way back in Hulk in the Terror in Times Square, you'd see that he left money behind when he'd steal clothes. Now he's just taking clothes. He doesn't care anymore. And also the other important point is that there's alcohol here so he can clean the wound, is the idea. Ray finds them. They are all together. Ray says, I have to, blow up the refinery. Banner's like, you can't blow up the refinery. Cassie's pregnant, yada, yada, yada. He says, well, I gotta do it anyway because I got my reasons. I got my dad is dead and I have to avenge. Vendetta. Anyway, so then basically calls Jack McGee, but on a bad line. And Jack McGee, he doesn't even know who this guy is anymore. And basically trying to tell him that, Ray's going to blow up the refinery, but because the line is so bad, he says, look, just have Ray meet me at the refinery and we'll sort it out. But then we see that there's a cop at the station who's all, hey, I'd like to get paid money by Wesco. I support the man. And basically rats out Jack McGee's. Actually, no, he's actually a reporter at the local newspaper, I believe. And he was listening in on the conversation, so he knows that Ray's gonna show up at the refinery. So all the West Coast Security Corp is there, and then Jack McGee shows up, and basically, for what it's worth, he talks his way right in, and of course, Ray sneaks in and tells Cassie and David to get away, but then the West Coast Security shows up. Of course, they're hired goons, so they rough up Cassie, they rough up David, but David doesn't like seeing Cassie get roughed up, so of course, Hulk sues. Hulk quickly dispatches the police and then goes to save the day. We do get, it's not really a super leap, but it's sort of implied as a super leap of the Hulk doing a nice big long jump, but we don't really ever get to see anything of it. Again, a little disappointing there. Jack McGee shows up, sees the Hulk. Madrid basically turns coat on the evil John Fielding, our bad guy. And the story will be told to the popular press about the evil of Wesco. And and that's basically it. We do see that Ray does have to go to trial for his terrorist actions. Although obviously there is some sympathetic juries out there because of exactly the whole story that's being told, thanks to the power of the press and Jack McGee. And that's the end of our episode. Well, no, that's not quite the end of our episode. The very end of our episode is John Fielding in his office with the phone lines ringing off the hook and his secretary saying, Mr. Fielding, can you please answer some of these calls? So what'd you think, Phil? I'm giving you maybe a quick script here, but I enjoyed it while I was watching it. I'll definitely say that. I don't think there's as much depth as earlier episodes or as some of the more recent episodes. I thought we were really on a very strong streak of really great episodes. I just kind of felt like this one just, I don't know, maybe felt a little quickly written. What did you think?
I enjoyed the episode, but like the one big problem I had was just the giant coincidence that Jack McGee's editor sends him to the area where Banner's at. You know, not on purpose. It just so happens Banner's in the middle of this where Jack McGee's been sent to write up this story.
Jack McGee was in the area. That's why he's sent here. Because he says, I know I'm in the area. He does say that. It was actually made clear. So basically what it is, he's tracking the Hulk. So the Hulk obviously was in the area recently.
Oh, okay.
So he's trying to track down the Hulk. And like in the area could have been like, the closest 50, 60 miles. So it's not like it's right around the corner. But he knows the Hulk's around here somewhere. And that's why Jack McGee doesn't want to do the story, because he's on a hot lead on the Hulk. He's being pulled out to chase this Bonnie and Clyde story. He doesn't want to do it.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
As coincidence would have it. Now, it's coincidence that David Banner just happens to go to the one gas station that they're going to be blowing up. Although, I guess since they've been blowing up all the gas stations are now West Coast, I guess it kind of stands to reason this might have been the only gas station available. Although in that case, you'd think there'd be a bigger line at the gas station. I don't know, blowing up all the gas stations in town. You wouldn't think there'd be a lot more demand at whatever gas stations were left. Anyway, yeah. So I mean that it makes sense to some extent. The one thing I really liked about this episode, aside from the pop top soda cans, is something that we will. I do feel we've seen it in the past. I think we will see it more in the future. Is the use of Jack McGee and the Fifth Estate as the de facto law enforcement body? Because as we see, this is a very corrupt universe. As we say, most businesses operate on the idea of, have we tried killing them yet? And the police officers are not much better. Most of the cops are on the take in this universe. This is consistent with, the 1970s police model. If you weren't the Chips, you were pretty much a corrupt cop. If you were Roscoe P. Coltrane or any other, there were a lot of police officers in that day who were not the good guys. Again, this is something I think stems from the Watergate revelations and this idea, and of course informed by the very real problems with Southern law enforcement at the time and their oppression of African Americans. There was a real distrust by the youth of America, and as such, key demographic for the police forces, and so popular culture often depicted that. All in all, it's a good story. I just, like I said, it just wasn't as great as some of our previous ones. When you look at stuff like The Quiet Room, when you look at stuff like The Confession, even when you look at, what was our Native American episode? I'm trying to remember what it
Kindred
was.
Spirit.
Kindred Spirit, there was, a lot more character, a lot more story, and just a lot more interesting premises. This was a very flat, kind of very straightforward premise. It's not a bad premise, but it kind of felt like a story sorbet, sort of cleanse our palates at the end of the season. We don't get a cliffhanger. We don't get anything strange or exciting. We just get what we're getting. Very workmanlike. It hits its points. It makes its notes.
Yeah.
But it doesn't grab you the way that you'd honestly. Well, of course, this is the thing. We're watching this transition from 1970s storytelling to 1980s storytelling, and this is before Who Shot JR. So the idea of the cliffhanger season ending really hasn't been established yet. It's going to be established soon, but they haven't really gotten to that idea that no, the end of the season you leave something dangling, so people are going to come back next season. In this world, no. At this point, no. But we want to end the story, so we just give a story. We tell a basic story, and then we call it a day.
Yeah.
We're not even thinking of like, oh wait. Of course, that was an interesting thing. When you only had 3 networks, you probably didn't live in fear of your show being canceled as much. It's like, hey, we got good ratings. We're winning our time. Like the whole Incredible Hulk was always very popular. You know, has its key demographics. We're doing okay. So people didn't worry as much about whether or not they were going to have more interesting stories at the end of the season. They do have very interesting stories throughout the Hulk's second season. I definitely think that they are improving on their storytelling a lot between the first and the second season. But that, for their season ender, it was a little bit of a letdown.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, they might not have been doing cliffhangers, but they could have given us a little more to hold, to tie people over to the fall.
Mm-hmm. So, Phil, when did you start on this season? Because you didn't start you didn't start with marriage, did you?
No. Trying to remember. It was like maybe episode, was it 11 or I was gonna say 11 or 12, but it might have been even before that.
Yeah. Well, but you've had you've been around on the season 2 for a long time.
Yeah.
And one of the things I really wanted to do was, because, I did want us to have a bit of a season 2 wrap up, which is kind of maybe that's the good thing about Vendetta Road, not having a lot to talk about. I mean, it has its great moments. And like I said, the fact that Jack McGee is being used in this way, as I say, the de facto law enforcement, that the Fifth Estate is the hero when you cannot trust the police. The Fifth Estate revealing the truth of the world is what is important. And that, I think, is the real selling point of this episode. Although ironically, as a tell to the eventual destruction of print media, we don't really get to see Jack's article on the subject. We just see the news report telling us about the effects. So yeah, the news report is still king. Television news winds up killing the newspaper, and so it goes. But what did you think about this season as a whole, Phil? What do you think about your run? So this is your last official continuous where we don't know you're going to be back. I know you'll come back. Dave's going to come back. Everyone's going to come back from time to time. But we don't know when you're going to be back. But this was your long run on the Incredible Hulk. What did you think of this season, Phil? What are your thoughts?
I liked most of the episodes I saw. I even saw some of the previous ones. Like I watched the married episode, and even though I didn't podcast about it, it was a big season. I think they learned a lot from season 1 and season 2. They went a little bigger, and we got a lot of important episodes in this season. Like I said, the married one, we had this, Banner got married again, but I think the biggest thing we got in season 2 was the whole Mystery Man 2-parter with when Jack McGee discovers that the Hulk is actually a man who transforms.
Yes, that certainly, Mystery Man, I think, really was one of, it's, like, here's what I'll say. Like, if this was done nowadays, Mystery Man would have been the 2-part season finale.
Yes.
So you get Mystery Man 1 at the start of the season, Mystery Man 2 would be your return to in the next season. Which is, it's interesting to see how different the world worked back then, that no one even thought to do that. And even though it just makes perfect sense. You're going to do this 2-parter. You have the real threat of Jack McGee finding out about Banner, and, how do we deal with that? The other thing that I really liked, we didn't see it very much in Vendetta Road, but we did see, and again, in the 2 previous episodes, of basically the Hulk being superheroic, doing things that are well beyond simply what a Lou Ferrigno could do. And not just in lifting heavy objects, but in throwing heavy objects insane distances. Throwing in heavy objects that are smashing through solid objects. And even in the quiet room, even though we didn't see the direct physical structures, there was a great scene where you see the Hulk roar and you see everyone being blown back by the force. in the quiet room. And to me, that is, I think, one of the things, that is what is really missing. And it may be in many ways just because of the effects budgets of the day. And I'm sure, in fact, I'm 100% sure that the effects budget of the day is one of the strongest factors limiting it. That they just don't feel they have the finances to both. And really, you know, what I'll say is, like, you know, painting Lou Ferrigno every episode probably is actually costly. Because it's a lot of hours to get all that. No, I'm, when I always compare this to Wonder Woman, and and how many feats of strength and super leaps they have Wonder Woman do. But that's just Linda Carter in a one piece. I mean, her getting her into that outfit is probably not that strenuous. Getting Lou Ferrigno set up as the Hulk, that is probably at least 2 hours of makeup. And constant retouching, because they didn't use something that would that was basically solid. They used basically a grease paint that would just wear off constantly, and so they'd always had to be retouching it and refixing it, which means you have these makeup artists on the set all the time. So it's like in making Lou Ferrigno, they didn't have to use any prosthetics because the man looked like a Hulk. But you did have to just keep him painted, and and probably because they were spending so much time and money on that, they really could never do as much physical stunt work with Lou Ferrigno as they wanted, as I would like, But what I do like is that in this season we start to really get that physicality of what a Hulk is. That a Hulk is superhuman. It's not just a really, really strong human. It's a human who has strength beyond what is acceptable for a human being. And to me, that's one of the best things. What was anything frustrating for you about this episode or about this season?
Nothing's jumping out at me right at the moment, but I don't know, maybe just like some of the Hulk outs, like what was it, the quiet room when he's on the phone and he hulks out because he's frustrated, I guess.
Well, we've established that, the whole, Banner no like talk on phone. Banner no like traffic. Banner no like talk on phone. Both of these will trigger Hulk outs. I was actually waiting for him to do a Hulk when he's talking to Jack McGee.
But it's just like that's probably the frustrating thing. Is like the transformations are so varied. It's like, okay, he'll Hulk out just by being frustrated by the phone, but meanwhile in this episode the gas station exploded in it and there was no Hulk out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like when he the plane crashed, no Hulk out.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
they're randomized with their when Banner Hulks out. I mean, they probably feel they're being consistent. And what the big difference is that they do not tie hulking to a specific pain response, generally, although they will have it be triggered by a pain response. That it is only when there is this conferred frustration, that it's not just the fight or flight response, it's actually the frustration and the anger. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that seems to be, I think, what the writers are doing there. Like I say, I mean, I do think this was a good episode, but here's what I'll say: this is not the best episode, but I do think this has been the best season so far. I do think that season 2 has really done some good things. I do like the biggest thing that frustrates me on this is the lack of continuity. I really want Banner to be trying to. Like I said, like the biggest thing to me in this whole thing is that he knows that there was a proto Hulk who found a cure, or may have found a cure. He knows that this plant, which is extinct, may have been the cure. He also knows that another Native American has a substance that seemed to have almost cured him, and it just seems like Banner should be being more focused on that aspect of it. Although, I guess when we got to the the confession episode and we see Banner doing the experiment on himself, I like to think that that was something related to those previous things, that he remembered what the formula the guy in Rainbow's End did. He knew what the qualities of the plant were from kindred spirits, so he doesn't need to go back for their knowledge. He just needs to take the knowledge he's already gathered to try and work on his cure. Although obviously, as we saw in the confession, it did not work the way he wanted it to. And I do think that's the crux of the season. I think that, at the end of the day, it's definitely getting better. I'm really looking forward to the next episode, which is season 3, episode 1, Metamorphosis, Hulk versus Glamrock. David accidentally befriends a depressed rock star called Lisa Swan, who is being dominated by her manager / sister. It's that is how we open up next season. It's always interesting to me whenever they try to touch into popular cultural zeitgeists. Like I say, in this one, it is very much that Bonnie and Clyde aspect. Bonnie and Clyde had just come out not too long ago. It was a big hit with Warren Beatty and I forget who played Bonnie in that. Some beautiful actress. I can't remember who. But it was a very big thing. And, they always like to try to look for what's currently in the zeitgeist to tell a Hulk story and then subvert it in some way. And again, like I say, in this case, it was actually the redemption of Bonnie and Clyde. The fact that Bonnie and Clyde are actually are a loving couple, that they actually are, there wasn't just a passionate, but actually a compassionate relationship. That and that they're attacking on the gas stations isn't about money. It isn't about fame. It's really just about trying to expose the bad business practices of Westco, and that's nice. Do you have any further thoughts on tonight's episode, Phil, or this season as a whole?
No, I think I've put my thoughts out there.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, Phil, you will be missed. We're only, it's going to be sad only doing 2 podcasts a week with you instead of 3. And if you'd like to hear more of me and Phil, do know that you don't have to be sad that we're not going to be together on GammaCast, because we will still be together on the all new Marvel Roundup and Super Connectivity on the Nuff Said channel here at here on the Southgate Media Network. Phil, if they'd like to talk to you about the Hulk, if they'd like to talk to you about what you did or did not like in this season, or if they just want to say, please, Phil, come back to GammaCast, you're too awesome to not be watching The Incredible Hulk on a regular basis, how can they get in touch with you?
Anyone you want to discuss anything Marvel or DC, you could email me nightwingpdp@gmail.com. On Twitter, I am @nightwingpdp. And if you're looking for more of me, you can check out my other podcasts, Before the Bat and Legends of DC, where we discuss the CW DC comic shows, and Charlie Esser is also a part over there. We're not on a show together, but we are both there. Check it out.
Very good. And of course, as I always say, if you'd like to write to me at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. And you can always write to me, or you can always reach out to me on Twitter @CharlieEsser. That's CharlieEssessr. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality. And ladies and gentlemen, it has been a really fantastic second season with you here on GammaCast. I hope you're going to stay tuned for the 3rd season and beyond. Hulk out with us again. Good night.
Good night.
We hope you've enjoyed this show. This podcast is part of the 80s Reboot Overdrive channel on Southgate Media Group. You can follow us on Facebook on the 80s Reboot group page. We're also on Twitter and Tumblr @80s Reboot. We invite you to check out all the wonderful podcasts and blogs available at southgatemediagroup.com. And thank you for reliving the 80s.